All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're tackling a massive, and I mean massive, question that's hanging over the entire global economy. What is the real cost of this AI boom we're all living through? We're going to dive deep into a recent and pretty provocative analysis that looks at the incredible financial strain AI is putting on big tech and what that could mean for every single one of us. It's the comparison that's on everyone's mind. The hype, the crazy valuations, the promise that this one technology is going to change absolutely everything. It feels familiar, doesn't it? But is history really just repeating itself? Well, here's the thing. The analysis we're exploring today makes a pretty startling claim. It argues this isn't just an echo of the dot-com bust, not even close. The scale, the way it's financed, and the risks hiding under the surface are fundamentally different, and potentially a whole lot more dangerous. To really get a sense of the scale here, let's start with a number that basically redefined risk for an entire generation of investors. $5 trillion. That's the estimated market value that just poof, vanished during the dot-com crash. Okay, hold that number in your head. Now, the projection for the fallout from what this source is calling the AI superbubble is $35 trillion. And no, that is not a typo. That is 7 times the wealth that was destroyed back in 2000. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll dig into that comparison and figure out why this analysis is predicting a crash that's 7 times worse. Then, and this is the really crucial part, we'll get into the core technical argument, a fundamental flaw the source calls backward AI. After that, we'll look at the proposed solution, something called forward AI, and to wrap it all up, we'll unpack the source's step-by-step playbook for investors who might be facing this exact implosion. All right, let's tackle that first big question head-on. How could this bubble possibly be 7 times more destructive than the one that basically defined the turn of the century? So what's really fascinating here is how the money is flowing. Back in the dot-com days, you had venture capitalists and IPOs pumping money into startups that weren't making a dime. This time, it's totally different. The analysis points out that it's the established, profitable giants, the big names, taking on enormous amounts of debt to fund these AI projects. That creates a completely different and arguably much bigger kind of systemic risk. And this chart really drives the point home. Look at the sheer scale of the investment. As a percentage of the entire economy, the money being poured into AI right now is almost identical to the absolute peak of the dot-com craze. But the analysis argues the foundation this time is way, way shakier because it's built on a mountain of debt. Okay, now we're getting to the absolute heart of the matter. The argument here is that this isn't just about markets getting a little too optimistic. The claim is that this entire bubble is built on a fundamental and totally predictable engineering failure. This whole critique is rooted in the research of Dr. Yogesh Malhotra, and it introduces this really important term, backward AI. This is basically the AI we hear about every day, generative AI, large language models, all of it. The argument is that these systems are fundamentally reactive. They're amazing at spotting patterns in data from the past, but they have zero genuine understanding or reasoning. Think of it like a student who memorized the entire textbook. They can ace any question they've seen before, but give them a new problem they have to think about, they're completely lost. And according to Dr. Malhotra's analysis, this leads to some critical, predictable failures. These systems are brittle, they just break when they face something new, they confuse correlation with causation. An AI might notice that ice cream sales and shark attacks both go up in the summer and wrongly conclude that ice cream causes shark attacks. They completely fall apart when faced with unexpected black swan events. And here's the kicker. A reported 95% of corporate AI pilots fail to deliver any return on investment. The claim is, we're spending trillions on tech that is, by its very nature, designed to fail out in the real world. So the crucial point here, according to the source material, is that this isn't some innocent mistake. This is a deliberate choice. The analysis argues that what it calls the Silicon Valley-Wall Street nexus has actively ignored proven science and engineering principles, choosing instead to chase the hype. And that's led to just massive misinvestment, all for short-term financial gain. So if all the current AI is backward, what's the alternative? Well, this research doesn't just criticize. It actually proposes a completely new path forward. And that alternative is called forward AI. It's a whole new paradigm. embodied by a technology the source refers to as QASNs. Now, unlike its predecessor, forward AI is all about understanding causation, the actual why behind things, not just recognizing patterns. The whole goal is to create systems that are adaptive, resilient, and can actually anticipate and navigate future surprises instead of just reacting to what's already happened. This slide really just lays out the contrast perfectly. On one side, you have the brittle, correlation-based backward AI with a huge question mark next to its return on investment. And on the other, you have the adaptive, causation-driven forward AI, which the source claims can deliver real, assured value because it solves the fatal flaws of the current models. Okay, so if the analysis is right and the flawed engineering of backward AI makes a crash pretty much inevitable, how is an investor supposed to navigate that? Well, the source material actually provides a very specific playbook for exactly that scenario. It's a classic three-step strategy. First, you prepare. That means getting your portfolio away from the most overhyped tech stocks. Second, you hedge. Protect yourself from the downside using tools like options or inverse ETFs. And third, if you're feeling bold, you position to profit by making targeted shorts and being ready to buy up valuable companies for cheap after the crash. And for that first phase, the preparation, the analysis, doesn't just offer up vague advice. It gives a specific reallocation model, suggesting investors move into value stocks, defensive sectors like consumer staples, and commodities, basically building a portfolio that's designed to weather a serious storm. And listen to this. They're not talking about some distant future. The source lays out a very specific timeline. It suggests the first cracks start to show in late 2025, when major companies start missing their earnings targets. That leads to the bubble bursting in the middle of 2026 as these ROI droughts hit and the promised returns just aren't there. The survivors, they'll be the ones who pivot to a forward AI model sometime after 2027. And if you think this is all just theory, think again. The analysis points to what well-known investors are doing right now. Michael Burry, the guy from The Big Short who famously predicted the 2008 housing crisis, has reportedly made a massive $1.1 billion bet against the big AI companies. That is a powerful signal that some very, very smart money is taking this possibility seriously. So we end up right back where we started. The analysis we've just walked through presents a really compelling and, frankly, unsettling case that the AI boom isn't a boom at all, but a super bubble built on fundamentally flawed engineering. It concludes that a $35 trillion reckoning isn't a question of if, but when, which leaves all of us with one simple question. Are you prepared?